What's going on, YouTube, and welcome to the Goal Line Hockey Podcast, episode 16. We have some things to take a look at today. The main focus is going to be a recent Athletic article by Corey Proman, the NHL trade deadline, 13 prospects that could get moved. So we're going to make some mock trades for those guys. We're also going to take a look at the standings, the latest power rankings, preview, as well as we are also going to look at the top point producers for this past week. Guys, I am back. The Goal Line Hockey Podcast is back. It's been a little bit of a rough road. I'll be talking about some updates to the channel as we hit closer to 1,000 subscribers. I am so excited. So we have a lot to get to today. So let's get right into this podcast. Okay, so to start things off, we're going to take a look at the NHL standings. Now, let's take a look. And I can't edit my videos. That's something I'm going to mention later. So, all right, so looking at the standings, we have the Toronto Maple Leafs at the top in the Scotia North Division by a large margin. They are up by 9 points on Winnipeg, up by 10 points on Edmonton. Vancouver and Ottawa round out the bottom. Tampa Bay leads the Central Division, tied with Carolina with 2 games in hand. So the standings are definitely getting quite interesting around the NHL. You look in the Mass Mutual East Division, the Islanders and the Capitals are right at the top, with Boston and Philadelphia not too far behind, as well as Pittsburgh. And then you kind of see the drop-off. There's, the Sabres, the Devils, and then the Rangers toward the bottom. In the Honda West Division, you've got Vegas at the top, Colorado starting to make their way back up, and Minnesota, who's the other team? Arizona has started to make up a little bit of ground. They find themselves only 2 points back of the Minnesota Wild. The Minnesota Wild have been on an absolute tear. Kind of got beat up this week against the Vegas Golden Knights, but overall, Minnesota Wild have been pretty solid. Now, with that out of the way, guys, you may be wondering, where's the edits? There's nothing going on with the edits? No. So, quick update on everything. So, of course, right before we hit 1,000 subscribers, we are going to have the entire world implode on this channel, but not for too long. Okay, so basically what's gone on is I have a MacBook Sierra, whatever it's called, or an iMac from 2013. I did not realize this is an 8-year-old computer. That's why the video quality isn't necessarily the best. I had to get a mic to go along with this. And we have officially hit the point where iMovie, which I use to edit my videos, no longer accepts my videos because it's so outdated. I cannot update iMovie with the software I have. I'm going to have to buy a new computer. I'm going to buy a new Mac, the iMac, when it comes out, hopefully this June. At some point here in 2021, it will come out, so I'm going to be laying out some money for that. I'm going to get the new computer. It's going to have hopefully a better camera. It'll have 180, 1080p's, which would definitely be nice in HD. So the camera quality will get better, as well as obviously, faster editing and stuff like that, which I've started to have an issue with this iMac. Interesting how this Mac all of a sudden can't use iMovie and stuff like that right before the new iMac comes out. Interesting how that works, right? Almost like Apple wants you to buy their new product. But again, that's enough of my conspiracy theories. But I have my MacBook Air, which is getting fixed next week. So once that gets fixed, hopefully in the next month, we will have edits again here on our podcast as well as during our regular videos. So for the meantime, it's just going to be raw. It's just going to be me talking to you guys, and hopefully you guys don't fall asleep too quick. All right, so with that out of the way, guys, we are getting so close to 1,000 subscribers. February 15th, 2019 was my first YouTube video. So we are over 2 years now, so happy birthday, Goal Line Hockey. And we are just in time as we are about to hit 1K on this channel. So I appreciate the support as always, guys. And now let's get back to the latest around the league. So the big storyline, Corey Pronman came out with an article from The Athletic, basically talking about the trade deadline and the 13 prospects who we could see get moved. And some of the names may surprise you. Some of them you may never heard of. So the first one is Colorado Avalanche defenseman Justin Barron. Now, obviously the Colorado Avalanche have a very solid blue line right now. Cale Makar, Bowen Byram, who's come in, Eric Johnson, Devin Tays, who else am I missing? Ryan Graves. So does Justin Barron even fit into the equation? Now, he's been playing with the Halifax Mooseheads of the QMJHL. He becomes more expendable for the Avalanche if they maybe want to add a goaltender, or if they want to maybe add a little power up front. They can do that with a player like Justin Barron. Or are they better off waiting, because we're going to inevitably see a big contract given to somebody in this Avs blue line? Maybe they throw Justin Barron back into the mix. Another name that we've heard, the Florida Panthers. Henrik Borgstrom has not played with the Florida Panthers this season. The Finnish forward, a big power forward. He'd fit in quite well with another team. I think the Anaheim Ducks are a team that I just look at for some reason. I think he's not, obviously, because the Ducks have a lot of good centers. He's probably more of a better, fit in the bottom six. But as a center, winger, power forward, I think he could be a nice, obviously he's not Ryan Getzlaf, but he's that type of player that could fit in well with the Anaheim Ducks. Kale Klang, goaltender for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Have not heard much about this guy. It's hard to get a read on the Penguins' current approach after the management change. They selected back-to-back goalies with their second and third round picks in 2020. Joel Blomqvist and Kale Klang. Respectively, it raised some eyebrows, as normally they do not pick goaltenders back-to-back in the early parts of the NHL draft. So, kind of interesting that Pittsburgh did that. There's a situation where maybe Pittsburgh, again, they find a way to throw him in with somebody else to pick up another asset, so he's a sweetener in a potential trade for the Penguins. But the Penguins don't have many prospects left. Do you really want to trade another goaltender away? Now, Blomqvist looks pretty good, but still, there's a long time till he comes to the NHL. So maybe having that support in your depth in terms of goaltending prospects might be a good move here for the Pittsburgh Penguins, but the name has been thrown out there. Minnesota Wild left winger Vladislav Firstov. Firstov's, the Wild's organization strength is on the wing, which we've obviously seen with guys like Matthew Boldy coming into Minnesota as well. Adam Beckman, although sources suspect Beckman will be hard to pry away from the Wild given his rise as a prospect. The Wild are not suspected to be aggressive at the deadline. Firstov is having a good sophomore year, scoring at UConn. He's scoring a point per game at UConn, pretty solid. He's over 6 feet tall. He's a creative forward who lacks NHL speed but has a chance to be an NHL regular. So Vladislav Firstov, whatever you want to call it, may be a nice option in the future for another team. Carolina Hurricanes, Morgan Geeky, he's a center. The Carolina Hurricanes have made it quite apparent they have a lot of good players. So he's been playing in the AHL with the Charlotte Checkers, and last season he had a really solid season with Charlotte. So there's another name, kind of like Martin Necas, like we heard last year. Morgan Geeky is another guy to keep an eye on in Carolina. I think he could be a really sought-after prospect at the trade deadline. Now, what does Carolina want to necessarily add? Maybe they add a goaltender. Maybe they add another forward. So watch the Carolina Hurricanes. They may be an interesting team here over the next couple weeks. Spencer Knight, the goaltender for the Florida Panthers, the first-round pick back a couple years back. Now, the problem is, you may be wondering, why would they trade Spencer Knight? You have Sergei Bobrovsky, who's struggling. Chris Driedger, he's not the long-term option. So if they get rid of Spencer Knight, well, who do the Florida Panthers have? The Florida Panthers may have to throw Spencer Knight in with another player. This is one that I'm sure will cause some eyes in Florida to twitch, as I don't think they want to trade Knight, who's one of the top young goalies outside the game, but it is a topic being discussed around the league in light of the fact that Bobrovsky has a cap of $10 million through the 2026 season. So that has a lot to do with it, because he's getting paid a lot of money that could go to Spencer Knight instead, but they no longer have that money. I do think there is a path forward for this to work out in the NHL. An increasing pattern is trying to have two reliable goalies. Knight is likely still a year or two away, in which time Bobrovsky will likely be in the decline of his career, and I'm sure some would agree that it is already occurring. You could say that. I think Florida and Knight can make it work, but some in the NHL are doubters that will happen. That's interesting because the problem is, it's because of the timeline with Bobrovsky, but I think they can make this work. It might not work perfectly, but it's going to work pretty close. I think we're going to see Spencer Knight stay in Florida. I think that's a little bit more of a buzz player to add to the list. Klim Kostin, left winger for the St. Louis Blues, always does well in my GM modes. A power forward guy. He's been playing in the KHL. He's had a strong run in the KHL over the past couple weeks. Interesting player because of his size, skating, physicality, and offensive playmaking ability. Although how much has been a point of debate. I think he could still be an NHL player, but if the Blues want to buy, he's the guy teams point to as the obvious candidate to trade for. So I think the Blues, again, it comes down to cap space. Do you want the younger rookie contract than Klim Kostin over the guy that you're going to have to trade Kostin and a first or a second for another guy? Does that really make sense? Klim Kostin may be the best option here for the Blues. They got to bring him back, though, and at this rate, I don't know if he wants to stay in St. Louis, so maybe they have to trade a guy like Klim Kostin. Timothy Liljegren, who has been out of the lineup for the Toronto Maple Leafs blue line. They seem to be getting things going in terms of wins, and Timothy Liljegren has been kind of left out to dry. He has not been playing. Remember, he fell in that draft back in, 2019 or 2020? He fell in that draft. I think it was a 2019 draft. He fell to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and everybody was a little bit shocked he fell that far in the draft. We may be seeing some of the issues now, as he doesn't seem to be in the best favors with coach Sheldon Keefe, and it seems like his situation in Toronto may be coming closer to an end than we thought. With the emergence of guys like Rasmus Sandin, who's the other guy? Now I forgot his name. Lehtinen, is that his name? Mikko Lehtinen. He kind of took his spot as well on the blue line, so it makes a guy like Timothy Liljegren more expendable for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Mason Lohrei of the Boston Bruins, defenseman. Boston drafting Lohrei in the second round as a second-year eligible prospect. Last October raised some eyebrows around the league, but to the Bruins' credit, he's been the clear best defenseman in the UCHL. He's 6'4" and 19 years old. He's a big boy, and I think he could be a better skater. That's one of his bigger assets that he has an issue with. He's a poor skater. You do see that with a lot of these bigger, top-heavy defensemen. They're big guys, but they're not the best skaters, and we're seeing the way the game is changing. That could be a problem. And then we've got Victor Mete of Montreal, who could draw interest. There was rumors he was going to be placed on waivers a couple months back. Mark Bergevin never actually did that. Jaden Struble, and again, another right shot defenseman for the Montreal Canadiens. So the Canadiens are in a little bit of a situation as they feel they're a win-now team. So maybe those guys become expendable. And with the emergence of guys like Romanov, Caden Gooley, Jordan Harris, Matthias Norlinder, those are all left shot defensemen. So do the Habs really need another guy in Struble? I think he becomes more expendable. All right, so that's it for that. Guys, this is going to be a quick podcast, especially because I don't have the graphics for you guys. What's the other thing I wanted to look at? Now I'm forgetting. I apologize for this. Bad radio. I'm just trying to remember. Okay. So the YouTube comments, guys. I'm going to answer your comments from the YouTube comment section down below. So if you want to have your questions heard on next week's podcast, make sure to leave some feedback down below. So let's start with Justin Mercado on my most recent video. He said, good vid. Thank you, Justin. I see you in here pretty often. A lot of people did not like my Jack Eichel trades. I can see that. Antonio Stamkos, nah, bro, your drip is something special. I'm going to take that as a compliment. I appreciate that. And he said, let's go Isles. Yes. Jay Clark, when it's done, it could very well be the most beautiful arena in the NHL. Talking about the UBS Arena, Belmont Arena for the Islanders. I absolutely agree. I think this is going to be a really nice building. All that brickwork on the outside. Oh man, I'm really excited. I'm really, really excited to see what this building looks like. And we're that much closer, guys. We're that much closer to the Islanders' new home. A lot of people didn't like my recent power rankings last week because Minnesota was very low. So shout out to Levi S. and McRib is trash. You guys didn't like my power rankings. I can see that. So I appreciate the support. Doesn't really matter to me what you say. I appreciate the support as always. Adam Conrad, you forgot about Ottawa. The reason why Quebec is not back in the NHL is because Gary Bettman does not want them there because they're a Canadian team. The problem is that the NHL is just too big and it's too costly to go see, that it's just not realistic for the average fan to go see. That's something I may have to talk about in another podcast in the future, especially with how this pandemic has kind of affected the NHL and its economy. We may see some changes here for the NHL with how they handle things with ticket pricing and things like that. It's not cheap to go to buildings right now, and it's getting more expensive as we move along. Do you think these prices are going to drop when we go back to normal? I don't think so. So I think there's some debate there, and I kind of agree with you that the NHL, again, it's for the average NHL fan, it's becoming very expensive. And for me, I'd like to go to at least 4 games a year if I can. But again, that's kind of what ends up happening. So tough situation. But again, that's the way it works. Again, it comes down to supply and demand. You can hate that they're raising the prices. The problem is, well, not the problem, but the fact is people are still paying to go. So if people are still paying the money, they're going to keep raising the price because they know they fill out the stadium. So if they're going to make more money, they're obviously going to do that. Now, if people stop going to games because they cost too much money, well, then you're going to see the prices drop. We've seen this with the old Nassau Coliseum. They used to, a hot dog and a drink for $15 to go to an Islander game as a ticket. That's the ticket bundle. You think they're doing that now? No, because the Islanders are doing good. They have a bigger fan base, and more people are filling up the stadium, so they don't need to give out these offers. If there's enough of a demand, the supply will raise. That's just economics. That's just how it works. So I appreciate your comment, though, but the problem is people are still buying tickets, so the prices are going to continue to go up. But I appreciate that, and I kind of like that little bit of insight. I appreciate that, Adam Conrad. All right, so that is it for this week's podcast, guys. Very short. Like I said, we've now hit over 2 years. February 15th was the birthday, 2 years old, and we are just about to hit 1K subscribers. Just gained like 10 subscribers over the past day, so I appreciate the support as always, guys. If you guys are not already, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up down below and an even bigger subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Goodbye.